Okay, well, I was looking at all the stitches I created this month, and I was going to make up one to see how it would work, and then I looked and I thought, okay, my Tic Tac Toe, and it's looking really nice. It's laying really nice and flat, and I thought, boy, wouldn't that make a nice cowl? So I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and make the cowl, and so if you're watching this video, it worked out and I shared it. So I really like the way it turned out in this color and this yarn, and I just happened to have enough to make something small right here. It's James C. Brett bulky yarn. It's an orchid color. I don't have the number or the label anymore. I can find it and add it to the listing when I list it. But it's a thin, bulky, similar to Barcelona or premium puzzle yarn. And I'm going to use it on a 3/4 inch gauge with 40 pegs. It's about the same as a 42 or a 41 if you have them. It's just Cindy Wood Loom usually sells this in a set, and you can't get it separate, and they had a couple, and so I thought I'll grab them because they're the same diameter as the 5/8 inch 48 peg that I like to use. And so yeah, I'm going to do it in the 40 peg. So we'll get started. So we're just going to make a slip knot, and then we're just going to put it on the loom, and the short edge goes to the inside here, and our working yarn comes to the outside. And I guess it would help if I had my loom hook. And then we're just going to do a cast on, and so I'm going to do one that I know looks good with a cowl and these kind of stitches too. So we're just going to scoop up the yarn as if we're doing a purl. Put our hook in here just like we're doing a purl, and then just scoop it up. And then grab this to tighten it up a little bit, this yarn over here. And then we're just going to put it behind the peg. And we can put our loom hook down now. We're not going to need it. We're going to do this with our fingers. And we're going to do a chain crochet cast on at least one of the chains. And so then we just take the working yarn, put it through the loop we had, and tighten it. And then put it behind the peg, through the loop, tighten it, behind the next peg, through, and tighten it, behind the next peg, through, and tighten it. And then about here you should check and see if you're doing it just the right tension you need. Okay, so it's loose enough I could put it over when I have to knit it, but it's tight enough it's not going to leave a big gap. So that's what we want. Want just the right tension. Okay, so then we just continue around the loom. And I'm just going to put it on pause because this is going to get pretty boring, me just going around the loom doing the same stitch. And I'll meet you up when we get over here, and I'll show you how to connect it to the work. Okay, so here we are. We got one more peg here to wrap, so we go around the back of it. Put our yarn through, and then we have this loop, and we're just going to drop this loop over our black peg and tighten it. And then take our loom hook and just knit it over, and there we have that row cast on. Now we're just going to do a couple more rows so we have a really nice edge on this cowl. So we're going to do a row of purl, then a row of my owl eye stitch, and then a row of purl, and then go right into our work. So we're going to start with the row of purl. So we put our loom hook and slip it into the yarn, and then we just take our working yarn and bring it through, and then this is the loop we're going to put on the peg. So we just scoot it up to the top and drop it down, and there we go. And we put our hook through the bottom peg here, scoop up the working yarn, and just put it on and tighten. And so that's purling. And so we're just going to go all around the loom purling. It may be a little tight if you put it on tight, but better too tight than too loose, unless it's so tight you can't get it off, because it's nice to have a nice edge. Okay, and I'll meet you back up here for our next row. Okay, so here we are back. So now we're going to do a row of owl eye. To do owl eye, so we ended on this last peg, and this black one is our first peg. So we're just going to put it up like we're doing a flat wrap, and we're just going to wrap over it. Now we're going to go behind peg 1 and over peg 2. Here, I'll do a bit more of close up. So we're going to go behind peg 1, over peg 2, and we're going to do this very loosely. See, this is nice and loose, nice and loose. We're going to do it nice and loose. And this stitch is a lot nicer when you do it nice and loose. We're just going to knit it over, and then we're back on peg 1, behind peg 1, over peg 2, wrap it over. And that's how you do owl eye stitch. Really nice stitch. It's good for flat panels. I find I use it in all kinds of things because the way it works. We're using it with this cowl because with purl, owl eye makes a slight kind of a curly wavy effect, and that goes really nice with that chain cast on, so that even if you had a few loose loops, it would totally camouflage it and you would have a really nice edge. So here we go. On peg 1, we're going to go in front of peg 1, over peg 2, and knit off. Okay, we're at peg 1, because we're always at peg 1 wherever the working yarn is. In front of peg 1, cross it over peg 2, and knit it over. Okay, at peg 1, in front of peg 1, over peg 2, nice and loose, and then just knit it over. And cross 1 and 2, knit it over. Okay, so I'll do a couple more, and then you might as well just meet me up at the other side. Okay, so I'll finish the row and I'll meet you up at the end of the row. Okay, so we're just finishing off our row of owl eye, and then we've only got 1 stitch on here. Now when we're wrapping owl eye, every peg gets 2 stitches, so we have to put 1 more stitch on here, but we're going into a different stitch, so we're going to put it over as if we're going to go over 2, but we're only going to go over the 1. And there, we finished the owl eye row. Now what we're going to do is wrap 2 pegs together. So I'm just going to have to pause it here because I'm going to have to untangle my yarn. It's made a big looks like a yarn barf. Hold on. Okay, our yarn is flowing free again. Or maybe not. Hold on again. Okay, now it really is flowing free. I got caught there. Okay. So now we're going to do another row of purl. That's what we're going to do. Okay, so got our black peg here, and we're going to go under it and over it and do our purl. And so this is the last row of stitches we're doing that have to do with the cast on looking nice at the edge. We did the cast on, we did a row of purl, a row of owl eye, and now another row of purl. And then we'll start into our pattern. So we're just going to purl around the loom, and I'll meet you up on the other side. Okay, now we're ready to begin our pattern. Now our pattern is a 4-row pattern. They're not very difficult. It's 1 row of owl eye, then it'll be a row of wrapping 2 pegs together, then another row of owl eye, then another row of wrapping alternate pegs together, and then we start the pattern again. So it's always owl eye, wrap 2 pegs together, owl eye, and alternating 2 pegs together. So you may want to keep track of that. You could, you know, have a counter, you could have a piece of paper, you could put little markers on with different colors that tell you what row you're doing. I'm going to teach you to look at it and figure out what row you're on, because you never know when that's going to become really important that you do that. So we'll start by doing our row of owl eyes. So we go over the black peg, behind it, wrap peg 1 and 2, and we go around. This is first row of the pattern. So after we do this row, I'll meet you back up, and we'll start row 2 together of the pattern. Okay, so now for the second row of our pattern, we're at the last peg. I'm going to bring it up close here so you can see what we're going to do. We're going to wrap 2 pegs together. We're going to E-wrap them together. So we're going to take the working yarn, go behind pegs 1 and 2, wrap over and in front of them, and then we're going to go behind peg 3 and 4, wrap in front of them, and we're going to do this really loose in the next 2 peg pair so that all the peg pairs are separate from each other, and we're just wrapping a pair. And then before we go too far, you want to make sure this is really loose, so loose it feels like it could almost fall off. You want it to be nice and loose. So if it's too tight, all you have to do is take the one you're working on and loosen it. There we go, great here. And then you can loosen that, and loosen that, and loosen that, and loosen that. So you can go back and loosen them if need be. And then just wrap around. And now I have a knot in here. See if it'll come out. Yeah, it came right out. And so just wrap them all the way around. And I have an even loom. So they're going to wrap evenly. If you have an odd loom, you're going to have 1 peg left. So what you're going to have to do is knit off these first 2, and then after you knit off these 2, you can knit your odd peg with this one so that it gets a knit stitch on it, because we're only doing 1 row of this E-wrap 2 pegs. You want to make sure every peg gets wrapped. So if you have a 41 peg loom, you have that extra peg there, you've wrapped this, now you would wrap that extra peg with this one and knit it over. Okay, so now our working yarn's coming from here, and we're just going to bring it behind this peg and over the black peg to start our E-wrap row. So we've done row 2, right? And then we're going to start our E-wrap row, and I'm just going to put it here to actually lock it in, and I'm going to go around and lift off all the pegs we double E-wrapped. If you find they're hard to knit off because you're a little too tight, you can actually go the opposite way that you wrapped, and you'll find that that's looser. See, that's a lot looser going this way. So that's something you can do if you wrapped a bit too tight. Okay, So it's all taken over. We've started the first row of our owl eye, so we just go behind peg 1 and over 1 and 2, and we're going to do our row of owl eye. And then I'm going to come close to the end here, and so I'll meet you back up here after we do our row of owl eye. Okay, so here we are at the end of our owl eye row, and then we're just going to E-wrap 2 pegs again, but they have to be alternated. So if you have the even peg loom like I do, the first row we do was on the black and white, my starter peg and peg 2. So the pegs I'm going to be wrapping are the last peg and peg 1. And we're going to go and we're going to look at this. So I'll get really close so you can see this, so you can tell what kind of a row you're on. When you see this delicate little work right up here high on the peg like this, you're looking at your E-wrap, or your E-wrap, your owl eye row. It looks like that. And when you want to know what your double E-wrap row is, it's this thick one right here. And so you can see these 2 pegs, if you pull it down, these 2 pegs were wrapped together. Pull this down, you see these 2 pegs were never wrapped together. That's the E-wrap row, and you got a big hole here instead of this bunch of stuff here. So these 2 are wrapped together. So this is what it looks like. So if you ever wondered what row you're on, you look and see who's wrapped together, and you're going to wrap 2 pegs that weren't wrapped together. So that gives us the choice of wrapping these 2 together. Now if you were, because our yarn is right there, so we're just going to E-wrap them together. Now if you had the odd peg, you had to wrap that at the end. So what you're going to be seeing here is a couple rows that look the same, and your first row is going to be up here where they weren't connected. Do you see that? So what you're going to want to do is you're going to have to go a little further to go up to wrap the 2 pegs that you need to wrap. So you're going to want to lift the peg, put your yarn behind it, and put your yarn back on, so that when you go over there, you didn't have to go very far. And that's what you'll do if you had the odd peg loom. We don't need to do that on our even peg loom, because we're only going to wrap these 2. Whereas you're going to go in and you're going to see that you have a hole there. And so these 2 are wrapped together, so you're going to wrap this peg together and this peg together. These will be your first 2 right here. Okay, the 2 beside peg 1. Okay, so now we're going to wrap these 2 together. So we come behind and we go over these 2 and wrap these 2 together, come behind and go over these 2. And there you go. It's the same as before, except we're wrapping 2 more pegs. And if you need to check to make sure you're wrapping the right pegs, you can take a look. Make sure the 2 pegs you're wrapping together weren't wrapped together before. Right? And you just take a look like that. And so you're just going to wrap all around the loom and then knit it off, and I'll meet you back at the end. Okay, so I'm all the way around, and before I knit off, I'm just going to do a double check and make sure that I've wrapped the right pegs and that they weren't ones that wrapped up before. So I've wrapped these 2, and these 2 are wrapped before, so these are all right. I'm double checking it before I commit to wrapping it. So then I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it, and I just wanted to show you that to make sure that you wrap the right ones, because you don't want to have to frog your work. Okay, so I've wrapped them off, and now we're just going to take a look at how it looks. So here it is. So we have these holes that are part of the pattern, and we have a new one forming up here, which is what we want to have forming to have the pattern. So everything's looking good. Now if we look up here, you're going to see right away that you've got these thick bars up here. And you're going to know that your last row was an E-wrap 2 pegs and which 2 pegs it was. And you're going to know by right here that this was your owl eye row right in here. So It's really important, I think, to really look at it so you know what row you're on. So if you have to put down your work and you look at it, you can figure out where you are and what you're doing by how things look. And then you're not going to have too much trouble. And one more thing I'm going to show you about owl eye. So we're going to come up. So when we do our second row, we end up quite far back. So what we're going to do is what I showed for the people that have the odd eye pegs, is we're going to lift this up and go behind the peg. And that's so that we don't have a big loose bunch of yarn there, and then we just have to go behind one peg to get back to our starter peg. And so the same if you have the odd peg. If you have to go too far to go up there and you're worried about having a long string, just put it under a loop. Okay, so I'm just going to start again, and the pattern again is run one row of owl eye, then the next row is wrap two, E-wrap two pegs together, and it's always going to be your number 1 and 2 that you start with on that row for row 2. Row 3, you're going to do your owl eye again. Row 4, E-wrap 2 pegs, and you're going to E-wrap these 2 pegs. And if you're on the odd loom, you're going to make sure that the pegs you wrap are the right pegs by looking at the inside. Just a little bit harder with the odd one when you're only doing 2 rows. Okay, now I'm going to show you something with owl eye. So we're going to start our owl eye row. We do our 2 wraps over here. Let's say you put down your work and you were in the middle of a row somewhere, and so you were like, yikes, what was I doing when I put down this work? And it's hard to tell because you just started a row and you see all these rows were double E-wrapped or whatever. Well, owl eye will tell you, because if you look at it, it looks like a flat bar over here and your yarn is going this way. If you had done a double E-wrap and wrapped over, your yarn would be pointing that way. It wouldn't be like this. So that's your clue. You're on owl eye. Now the other thing with owl eye, you're gonna think, okay, did I come over and wrap this and rewrap it, or was it only wrapped once and knit over? And you might be confused, but you can just easily take off the loop and then put it back on, and you can see, because you've gone back here, that you had only gone over it once. So then you know you only went over it once. You can just knit it again, and then you know you go behind it and over it again. So there's just a few tips for you. So what we're going to do is go ahead and get this cowl as long as we want. And you can make any size of cowl you want. You can make it really high so you can pull it up over your head, or just have it more like a neck warmer, or just make it any length you want. For me, I think I'm going to more or less go till I use up that yarn. So we'll meet up and I'll show you the bind off, and just keep going back and reviewing rows 1 to 4 if you need help. Okay, so we'll catch up when we've knit enough, and we will just bind off together. Hi, this is part 2 of the Tic Tac Toe Cowl. My computer had a shutdown on me, so the video stopped. So we're just going to do it in the 2 parts now. So here we are, and this of course is the edge that would be in the back, but here we go. It's looking really good. I'm really happy with how it turned out. It looks just great. Yeah. So what we're going to do now is do the sequence to bind it off. Now if you stopped with one of the double E-wrap rows, you're going to want to do a row of the owl eye, because the sequence is owl eye, purl, owl eye, and then we do the bind off. But if you've already done owl eye, you don't want to do it twice in a row. So if owl eye was your last stitch, then you're going to go ahead and go purl, owl eye, purl, and you'll have to do owl eye, purl, owl eye if you actually stopped on the double E-wrap. So you just do your sequence now to finish off, because we want it to match the beginning, and it will if we do it that way. So again, the sequence to finish it is your last row will have to be owl eye. So make sure your last row is owl eye, and then you're going to go purl, owl eye, purl, and we're going to cast off from the purl. So I'll meet you there and we'll do the cast off. Okay, so we're ready to do our bind off. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a stretchy bind off. So we're going to go around the loom. Everybody usually says about 3 times. I'm just going to do about 2.5, but you probably should do close to 3. And find my scissors here. There we go, there it is. And up there. Okay, and cut the yarn. There we go. And then all we're going to do is get a needle and start doing the bind off. Okay, so I'll just put my needle on. There we go. Okay, now what we're going to be doing with this is we're going to be going down, and then we're going to be going up, and then we're going to be going behind a peg, down, up, behind a peg, down, up. So this is where the yarn is on peg 1. So we're going to start right here, and we're going to go up the black one, and then we're going to go back over to the white one. Well, back over, we haven't been there yet, but we're going to go to the white one and take the yarn from there. Then we're going to take our working yarn, I'll come up here so you can see, between the 2 we just did and just behind the black peg, and then we're going to go down this white peg right beside the black peg, there we go, and then we're going to go up the black peg. And then we're going to come up and just go behind this white peg. So we go down. So I think you're starting to see what the sequence is if you haven't done one of these before. We're going down the peg, up the peg before, between the 2 pegs we just worked at, around, down the new peg. And then up the peg. Keeping it a little bit snug, and then behind again, and down the peg. And up the peg. Behind it, and down the next peg. Okay, so I think that you get the idea, and we're just going to go all the way around the loom, and then we'll meet back up when we're done. So see you in a few. Okay, so I'm back here, and I'm just about to finish off here, so I've come behind back here to this peg. I go down, back up this one, and around the back, and that's it, we're bound off, but I'm just going to go once through this one. Okay, and then we're just going to take it all off and secure that yarn. and I'd already started taking it off. What can I say? I couldn't wait. I had to see what it looked like, and it's looking really good. Not known for my patience. Okay, there we go. I get them all off. Okay, there we go. And then this one will just be secured. Go through and do a bit of a knot in here where you can't see it. There we go. And then I'll take a look at this. Here we go. Here's our cowl, and it's looking really, really good. There we go. We just stretch out our stitches a bit, and there it is. And you're looking at the top and the bottom, and they look the same. They have the same amount of stretch. As you can wear it either way, it's going to look good. I didn't make a very big cowl because I just wanted a little one. I'm usually in the car, and then I get very hot if I'm somewhere wearing anything that's too warm. So I didn't really need it for walking or anything. And so all we have to do now is take our needle and then just weave in our yarns. So I've already got this one. I'm just going to go in here, and this is looking pretty lacy, so I'm going to weave it into the bind off, or the cast on or bind off borders here. There we go. And then I'm just going to do another little knot because I just am always so worried about my work coming apart after I've worked on it. And I just don't like to take any chances. And let's wind this in a little bit more. And we can just cut it off. There we go. So that one's done. I can cut it off, and I got to do this side too. Now if your yarn is on the outside, you just, with your needle, put it so that it's on the inside. I'm just going to put a little knot here. There we go, and weave it in some more. There we go. And then scissors, and we're just going to cut our yarns, and we are done. We have ourselves a cowl. So it looks really pretty this way. It looks really pretty this way. You can wear it either way. You'll get a slightly different look, but it looks really pretty. So there you go. It's got a nice stretch and feel to it too. But yeah, you can see it there. It just looks so nice. And yeah, to check too how good these match. So you've got a cast. It's really hard to tell which is which is the cast off, which is the which is the bind on. That's how well these match up. So I hope you really like it, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm glad it worked out. Sorry it had to be in two parts. I am going to see if there's some way I can put them together, but if I can't, it will be appearing in part 1 and part 2. And yep, thank you for watching. Enjoy making it and using this stitch, and we'll see you next time. Bye.